The message came in between helping customers at my boutique. No subject line, no explanation, just blunt words on a glowing screen. I'm leaving you. I'm moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. Ha ha. I didn't flinch. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack as I smiled and helped Mrs. Peterson pick out a scarf, wrapping it neatly in our signature silver tissue and placing it in a branded bag with satin handles. The only visible sign that my 12-year marriage had just been incinerated via text was a tiny tightening around my eyes. Once Mrs. Peterson left, I pulled out my phone and typed back a simple 2-word reply. Good luck. My name is Claire. I'm 38 years old, and that text was the most heartless goodbye I've ever received. But while Mark was probably gloating about his grand exit, imagining me crying in a heap somewhere, I was calmly turning the key in my boutique's front door, locking up for the evening. The thing is, I saw it coming. Not all at once, but in breadcrumbs scattered over months. Late nights at work that didn't match up with his paycheck, the sudden obsession with going to the gym, the new wardrobe that didn't suit him, the passwords on his phone that were suddenly private. And then there was the dinner receipt I found in his jacket pocket. A fancy restaurant for 2 on a night he claimed he'd been stuck working late. That was 3 months ago. That night, I opened a new bank account at a different bank. Quietly, discreetly, I began transferring my savings over, bit by bit. A week later, when Mark suggested combining our finances to simplify things, I smiled and agreed, all while ensuring the joint account held just enough to seem normal. 2 months' worth of deposits? Nothing more. Everything else, the real money, the careful documentation of suspicious charges and red flags, was tucked away safely, including screenshots, receipts, and notes. I'd even begun working with a lawyer weeks ago, because I didn't just suspect what was coming. I knew. Another buzz from Mark's number lit up my phone. Don't bother begging. Melissa and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Melissa. I remembered her. The receptionist from Mark's office. I'd met her at the Christmas party, fresh out of college, all false lashes and nervous laughter. I'd noticed how she hung on his every word, how she leaned in when she laughed, how she touched his arm like she was already staking a claim. I didn't text back. Instead, I called my lawyer. It's time, I said. She finally made his move? She asked, calm as ever. He did. I'll file the papers first thing tomorrow. Do you want him served in Miami? No rush. Let him think he's won. Another text popped up. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy. My little shop. The boutique I'd built from scratch. The one that brought in more income than his middle management job ever did. The business he once called a hobby that now paid for the mortgage, vacations, and even his gym membership. I took a slow breath, sipping a glass of wine as I looked around the home I loved. My home, inherited from my grandmother, still in my name, despite his repeated hints to add him to the deed. That had been another one of my overreactions, according to him. Now, it felt like divine foresight. I pulled out our wedding album while organising documents for my lawyer. Mark looked like a different man back then. Before the tight shirts and borrowed slang, before the attempts to recapture youth that wasn't coming back. Now, he was a walking midlife crisis, clinging to someone young enough to be his daughter and convinced it made him relevant. My phone buzzed again. I've been planning this for months. Melissa understands me in ways you never could. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll even find someone your own age. Already told my family. They agree we grew apart. Nobody's to blame. I screenshotted it and added it to my ever-growing folder of evidence. Each message was a nail in his legal coffin, especially the one that followed. BTW, I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL. Perfect. I called the credit card company. Hi, yes, I need to report fraudulent charges and remove an authorized user immediately. Certainly, said the rep. Can you identify the charges? Yes. 2 first-class tickets to Miami, hotel reservations at the Royal Palm, booked today using our joint card. I also have text messages from my husband admitting he made the purchases after draining our shared account. I'll forward them. The rep paused, then her voice returned, just a touch warmer. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. I've cancelled the reservations and the charges. He'll receive a notice shortly. I smiled as I imagined them showing up at the airport the next day, only to find their Miami getaway cancelled. Hotel gone, no flights, no refund. Another buzz. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. I actually laughed aloud. Did he really think he had a claim to my grandmother's house? Had he convinced himself his name was on the deed? His delusion was almost impressive. Buzz, I know the shop means a lot to you. We can work out a fair deal for your half. My half. Of the business I started, funded, grew, and ran alone. While he criticised my long hours and called it playing shop, I poured another glass of wine, the expensive one I'd been saving, and toasted to him. Because tomorrow he'd get a very different kind of surprise in Miami. Tonight, though, I enjoyed the quiet, the calm before the legal storm. Months passed since that brutal goodbye text, and life had quietly begun to reshape itself around me. The boutique, once just a small dream, was now blossoming into something much bigger. A second location had opened downtown, and the online store was gaining real momentum. Meanwhile, Mark was trying to pick up the pieces of the mess he'd made for himself, but from what I heard, it wasn't going well. Dating apps weren't kind to a man in his mid-40s living with his parents, and younger women, who might have once been intrigued, quickly lost interest once they caught wind of his history. Melissa, his office receptionist girlfriend, wasn't the loyal partner he'd hoped she'd be. She'd left him, shared screenshots of his desperate attempts to win her back, and moved on to someone closer to her own age. Work was booming, and that success felt like the sweetest kind of revenge. I hired 3 new employees and expanded the boutique's inventory. Suddenly, the small shop Mark had mocked as my little hobby was turning into a regional name. Local business magazines wanted to tell my story, not as a cautionary tale about betrayal, but as an example of resilience and smart business sense. Mark's career, on the other hand, took a nosedive. HR had launched an investigation into his relationship with Melissa, leading to a formal reprimand. The promotion he'd hoped for went to someone with a cleaner record. He tried to blame it on age discrimination, but the HR department didn't buy it, and neither did I when his sister Amanda dropped by the boutique one day. Amanda's visit was unexpected. She browsed quietly, picking up scarves and asking questions like a potential customer. Finally, she looked up and said, "I know we didn't support you at first. Mark's great at playing the victim, but after seeing how he's handled everything, I'm ashamed we believed him." Hearing that from Mark's own family was a small victory I hadn't expected but deeply appreciated. My lawyer kept me informed about Mark's ongoing attempts to challenge the divorce settlement, but every petition was dismissed. He even tried to claim his texts about emptying the joint account were just a joke. The judge, understandably, was less than amused. "Does ha-ha make theft less illegal?" she'd asked. The boutique's success brought me validation beyond the courtroom. Young entrepreneurs began reaching out for advice. One young woman, bright and determined, reminded me of Melissa, the hopeful who thought she could change a man like Mark. I always told them, the best protection is preparation. Keep your business and personal finances separate and trust your instincts. Mark's family still called sometimes, but these calls weren't about him trying to pull me back into the drama. His mother, in particular, expressed gratitude. "You taught us a valuable lesson," she said during one call. The difference between supporting someone and enabling bad behaviour. Their family's drama was no longer my concern. I had my hands full planning a third boutique location and dreaming about expanding into luxury accessories. The only reminder of Mark's betrayal was a framed screenshot of his cruel text hanging in my office. Below it sat my latest business award. Proof that sometimes the best revenge really is just succeeding on your own terms. The grand opening for the third boutique was a celebration of everything I'd built. Not just a business, but a symbol of independence and strength. The event drew local media, eager to share my story, focusing on my growth, not the failed marriage. Then, unexpectedly, Melissa walked into the boutique. She looked younger than ever, or maybe it was just that I felt stronger. Clutching her purse nervously, she apologized quietly. I believed everything he told me about you being cold and controlling, but then I saw how he tried to manipulate me when things got hard. I get it now. I kept arranging the display of designer sunglasses without turning to her. Those weren't his dreams, I said. They were escapes. There's a difference. Melissa nodded, then shared how Mark had tried to move in with her after I froze their accounts. After 2 weeks of him complaining about my tiny closet and suggesting I take out a loan for a bigger place, I understood what you meant. She laughed a little bitterly. Let me guess. Big plans, but no way to pay for them? Exactly, I replied. Melissa told me she was dating someone her own age now. They had student loans and a small apartment, but at least they were building something real. After she left, my assistant manager whispered, "Was that the girlfriend?" No, I said, just another woman who learned the same lesson I did. The boutique had become more than just a business. It was a symbol of resilience. Women came to shop not just for the products, but for the story it represented. My story. Mark's mother called one last time, not about Mark, but to thank me. You showed our family the difference between supporting someone and enabling them. I thought about that as I reviewed plans for a fourth location. Mark had tried to diminish me, to trade me for someone younger, to take half of everything I'd built. Instead, he'd pushed me to become stronger, smarter, and more successful. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Mark filed another petition to revisit the settlement. Judge dismissed it immediately and ordered him to pay court costs. Thought you'd enjoy that. I smiled, imagining Mark still stuck in his childhood bedroom, trying to rewrite an ending that was decided the moment he underestimated me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. The days rolled on, and with each passing one, my boutique's reputation grew. Social media buzzed with posts from happy customers, and the downtown location had turned into a community hub. Local artists showcased their work there, and I even started hosting monthly workshops on entrepreneurship for women. One afternoon, as I was closing up the second location, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, this is Rachel. I'm Mark's younger sister. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you did, not just for me, but for our family. Mark's finally in therapy, and we're starting to heal. I hope you're doing well. It was a surprise, but not unwelcome. I replied, Thank you, Rachel. I'm glad to hear that. Healing is the first step to moving forward. The next week, I received an invitation to speak at a women's leadership conference. The theme was resilience after personal and professional setbacks. It felt like the universe was telling me to share my story on a bigger stage. I accepted without hesitation. On the day of the conference, I stood before a packed auditorium filled with faces full of hope and determination. I told my story, not the juicy gossip about betrayal, but the lessons about strength, setting boundaries, and building your own empire even when the odds are against you. After my speech, a young woman approached me with tears in her eyes. You don't know how much this means. I'm going through a divorce and I feel lost. But hearing you made me realize I can come out stronger. That moment made all the sleepless nights, the tears and the hard work worth it. Meanwhile, Mark's attempts to disrupt my business ended quietly. His lawyer finally withdrew all claims, likely realizing the battle was over. Back at the boutique, things were peaceful. My team was thriving, and the third location was preparing for its grand opening. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. One evening, while reviewing quarterly reports, I received an unexpected email from a major retailer interested in a partnership. They'd noticed my boutique's unique style and loyal customer base. It was an opportunity I hadn't dared to dream of. As I drafted my response, I paused and smiled. This was the future. Bright, promising, and mine. Sometimes life breaks you down only to rebuild you stronger than before. The partnership with the major retailer marked a new chapter. Suddenly, my designs were reaching far beyond the city limits. Orders flooded in, and the logistics team worked overtime to keep up. But with growth came new challenges. I found myself juggling creative vision with business demands, sometimes losing sight of why I started in the first place. One morning, during a rare, quiet moment, I pulled out my old journal from years ago. Flipping through the pages, I rediscovered my original dreams. To create not just clothes, but confidence. To build a community where women lifted each other up. That day, I made a promise to myself. No matter how big the business grew, I wouldn't lose the heart behind it. I began hosting monthly meetups at the boutique, casual gatherings where customers, local creatives, and entrepreneurs could connect, share stories, and inspire one another. The community blossomed. I met women who started their own businesses, artists who found their voice, and friendships that turned into lifelong partnerships. One particular evening, as I was locking up, a young girl approached shyly. "Hi, I just wanted to say your story gave me hope. I'm starting my own shop next month." Her words hit me harder than any success metric ever could. I realized then that my journey wasn't just about business. It was about impact, legacy, and the ripple effect of resilience. And as the city lights flickered on, I felt ready for whatever came next.